Hi, my name is Liv, and welcome back to Blade of Desire, your home for holistic wellness through astrology and spirituality. Today is going to be a continuation of my last video that I did, which was all about Chiron and astrology and how understanding the sign can be used essentially for self-improvement and self-betterment, because I think that there's a lot of room for growth in understanding our Chiron placement, what it means and how it affects us. And I think it's really interesting how better understanding that can really lead us to better understand ourselves and improve those darker parts of ourselves, so to say, that we wouldn't usually focus on or want to talk about. And I want to continue that today by talking about what's called our Lilith placement in astrology, as it's similar in its ideals, that it deals with like the darker parts of our psyche. And I just think that's an interesting concept to work on in self-improvement and astrology combined. So I wanted to talk about that today. In astrology, your Lilith, which is also known as the Black Moon Lilith, isn't actually a planet. It is a point that is calculated between the moon and Earth. In mythology, Lilith was actually Adam's first wife before Eve, and she was essentially rejected or exiled from being with Adam because she basically had her own autonomy, and she refused to not be able to be on her own and not be able to hold her own weight. And I guess according to mythology, Adam didn't like that, so she was essentially exiled and sent away and wasn't allowed to marry Adam, and that's when Eve came along. Because of that, our Lilith sign essentially shows us a darker part of us that feels rejected or shamed or exiled. Because this placement shows where you hold such shame, it's a very raw part of you, and it shows your raw truth and the real expression of you, which is really important. Knowing and fully understanding your Lilith sign has 3 really good benefits for self-improvement. You can identify where your power might feel suppressed. You can better understand the kinds of energies that you're drawn to, even if it feels really conflicting. And it also allows you to do shadow work that's specific to your life experience and specific to how you feel. What I want to do next is break down Lilith throughout each element. So we'll do air, fire, water, and earth. And I won't get too in-depth or too specific. I want to keep this video pretty general, surface level knowledge, but I did kind of want to go through the elements themselves and just review how we can see this Lilith placement show up and how it might be conveyed per the elements. If your Lilith placement is in a fire sign, then everything that has to do with normal fiery energy is going to feel harder and more shameful for you. So think about individuality, being a leader, being expressive, showing up as your true self. Those are all things that bring you shame, more or less, so to speak, and they're going to be harder concepts for you to naturally evolve and understand and embody. Taking risks and practicing a healthy expression of self and not being afraid to take the lead are all really key ways that you can essentially better yourself if you have a fire sign Lilith. If your Lilith placement is in an earth sign, then things such as physical embodiment, control, power, those are going to be all pretty serious issues for you in this lifetime. You might have internalized shame about your body or what you look like. You might really struggle with ideas of self-worth or feel like you aren't worthy of certain ideas of pleasure or enjoyment. You might struggle with not feeling grounded enough, or others being offended or taking it personally, your idea of groundedness. There's a lot of different ways in which this could actually manifest. Because of this, I think that the idea of avoiding perfectionism and reclaiming your body as your own, especially through grounding work and somatic body practices, are essential to healing your Lilith placement in astrology. If your Lilith placement is in an air sign, then this is going to have a lot to do with communication, how others perceive you and you perceive them in conversation, your views of the outside world, all concepts that deal with those themes. Sometimes Lilith placements in air signs feel nervous to speak up and speak out because they feel like their opinions or thoughts might be too out there. Or when they do speak up, they might struggle with feeling misunderstood in general and just feeling like their thoughts don't line up with others. And it's this constant, like, misconnection kind of feel. Because of this, it's really important for Lilith air signs to be very connected to their voice and their sense of self, and knowing that it's okay to stand out from the crowd, to say something a little different, to not be afraid to speak up and share their voice, because they're in their hurt state when they're repressing their voice and their thoughts and their opinions. Air signs need to be able to feel free and free to express themselves, because that's really how they're going to grow and improve. If your Lilith sign is in a water sign, then ideas of emotional depth and intensity and intuition and all of those themes are going to be really central for you to grow and expand on in this lifetime. You might have grown up feeling like you needed to repress your own intuition, felt like you were being too emotional, had problems being emotionally vulnerable. There's a lot of different ways in which this can manifest, but just think the depth and the intensity of your emotions and how you showcase those to other people. That's what we're focusing on if we have a water sign Lilith. In order to better heal this, I feel like this one is pretty evident. It's really important to just own how you feel, own your emotions, own your own spirit, and trust in yourself that you are having the best reaction that you can to whatever situation is going on. I think it's important to just practice grounding in yourself, because water signs can bring that depth and emotional intensity. It can be hard to navigate at times, so focusing on where you are in the moment and really slowing down and grounding yourself can be really important. Now that we have gone through each of the elements as far as Lilith placements go, let's talk about overall what we can really do with this information. Now that we know what our Lilith placement is and how it shows up in our lives, how can we work on this to improve in the future? There are 3 main steps that I want you to walk away with today to better self-improve and work on self-betterment when it comes to your Lilith sign. The first step is to identify. The second step is to rewrite, and the third step is to ritualize. First, it's important to identify, of course, what your Lilith sign is, and almost take inventory in your life of how you see this show up in your own day-to-day and your own experiences, because those are incredibly valid, and it's important to have the self-awareness to recognize where these themes and thoughts and patterns show up in your life to improve. That is the most important part of this. Next, it is important to rewrite, as in rewrite the narrative, rewrite the story, whatever you want to say. So now that you can see what themes in your life are showing up as far as your Lilith sign goes, you're able to kind of explore from there and see, okay, what actionable steps can I take to better this energy and better myself in my own life? And that's something to hold on to. Because next we'll get into step 3, which is to ritualize and also to reclaim your own energy, reclaim these thoughts as your own and something you want to improve going into the future. I think once you've identified the patterns in your life that you feel like you don't necessarily want to identify with, it becomes easier to seek out ways to kind of soothe those parts of yourself and heal them over time. So it's important to take the self-care routines that you take from this video and make it a ritual. Apply it to your daily life. Have it kind of in your toolkit so that when you feel that vulnerable wound coming up next time, you can recognize it for what it is, and you know that you're prepared to deal with the emotions that may come, or to deal with the issues and hopefully get better and better. That is all that I have for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll be back with one more installment in this series. I want to do one on your descendant as well, which is the opposite of your ascendant or your rising sign, because it can give you a lot of value as well into what can kind of balance you out in life, and I think that's cool. So we'll talk about that next, but I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what sign your Lilith placement is in. I'd be curious, and I will see you guys so soon with a new video. Until next time, bye.